Hello fellow Coursera students and anyone who might be happening upon this video. I'm going to do a comparison of the encounter at Weathertop, the way it is described in the novel Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien, the way it played out in the Fellowship of the Ring movie by Peter Jackson, and the way it is set up here in the game Lord of the Rings Online. Now this is for the distinction track assignment for the Coursera course Online Games, Literature, New Media and Narrative, taught by Professor Jay Clayton by the Vanderbilt University. A really interesting course. I highly recommend it for anyone who's interested in literature and new media. And if you're a current student, you probably enjoy it just as much as I do. And if you're not, then hopefully there'll be a future opportunity to take this class. I really highly recommend it. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read a few short passages from the Lord of the Rings book and compare that to the settings here in the game as well as in the movie. Now, I have to admit, I never read the whole book from start to finish. I've been familiar with Tolkien's writings and the mythology and the setup and the characters and all of that. I watched the movies and really enjoyed them, but I've never read the whole book. And for this particular assignment, I did read the chapter A Knife in the Dark and enjoyed it because I got a lot more out of it than just watching the movies, and I also got more out of it in context of playing this game. And I'm going to start off with a description of Weathertop and the ruin on top of it, the way Strider describes it in the novel. It says, they built a great watchtower on Weathertop, Amon Sol they called it. It was burned and broken, and nothing remains of it now but a tumbled ring, like a rough crown on the old hill's head. Yet once it was tall and fair. It is told that Elendil stood there watching for the coming of Gil-galad out of the west in the days of the last alliance. And a few more interesting details. After this description, you can see I'm about halfway up Weathertop. So if I go over here, you see that halfway up Weathertop, and on top the ruin of Amon Sol, which looks roughly like a crown. But there are more details. Details I missed out just watching the movie because they weren't in the movie. Details I didn't know about because I never read the book. So now reading the book, let me read another passage here real quick. It says, on the western flank of Weathertop they found a sheltered hollow, at the bottom of which there was a bowl-shaped dell with grassy sides. There they left Sam and Pippin with the pony and their packs and luggage. The other three went on. And then a little further into the chapter, it says Sam and Peregrine had not been idle. They had explored the small dell and the surrounding slopes. Not far away, they found a spring of clear water in the hillside, and near it, footprints not more than a day or two old. In the dell itself, they found recent traces of a fire and other signs of a hasty camp. There were some fallen rocks on the edge of the dell nearest to the hill. Behind them, Sam came upon a small store of firewood, neatly stacked. This is actually in the game here. You can, on your way up Weathertop, you come across this dell and signs of a hasty camp, neatly stacked firewood, a spring of clear water, and signs of a campfire. When I played through this game the first time, none of this meant anything to me because the movies didn't have any of these details, so I wasn't familiar with it. It was just, okay, there was a campfire somewhere and some firewood, and yeah, it's pretty. It adds something to the atmosphere and a little bit of liveliness, but didn't really do anything else for me because I couldn't connect the dots. I didn't read the book. Now that I've read at least this chapter, I can appreciate these details in the game, and I know, oh, okay, Sam and Pippin were here. This is what they saw, and it gives me a deeper appreciation for this in the game, but also connects me much more to the story. So, important thing to read the novel for me, I take away from that, not just play through the game and not just watch the movies, because I like details, and the more details I can get and the more history of something I can get, the more I enjoy it. Alright, I'm gonna ride up the hill, which isn't necessarily an easy ride, as the professor mentioned. If you do it the first time, I've done it before, so this should be rather quick. I'll see you at the top in a few seconds. So here we are at the top of Weathertop in the ruin of Amon Sol. And as you might recall, Strider described it as a tumbled ring, like a rough crown on the old hill's head. And it definitely looks like that in the game. I think the game designer did a good job conveying that appearance. It does remind me of the scene in the Fellowship of the Ring. kind of similar look to it. And reading further into the chapter, there's some more details given. Details that are not actually found in the movie. For example, it says, on the top they found a strider had set a wide ring of ancient stonework, now crumbling or covered with age-long grass. But in the center, a cairn of broken stones had been piled. They were blackened as if with fire. About them the turf was burned to the roots, and all within the ring the grass was scorched and shriveled, as if flames had swept the hilltop. But there was no sign of any living thing. That wasn't really obvious in the movie. I watched that scene a few days ago, but I can't really recall if it looked scorched and burned. But here in the game, it definitely has that appearance. Something has happened here. And when you read a little earlier in the chapter, the Strider and the hobbits saw from a distance lightning on top of Weathertop and weren't sure what was going on. So something has happened here, something that isn't really connected to the movie, the attack of the Nazguls and Frodo being pierced and all that. This must be something else. And when you go over here, you see this white stone here, and it's connected to a quest. You click on it, you take a rubbing, you return that rubbing to one of the rangers, and it opens up further quests in the epic quest line. Now in the book, there's a description of the stone. I'm going to read this real quick. It goes on, I wonder, said Strider, looking round thoughtfully. Even if he was a day or two behind us at Bree, he's talking about Gandalf, he could have arrived here first. He can ride very swiftly when need presses. Suddenly he stooped and looked at the stone on the top of the cairn. It was flatter than the others, and wider, as if it had escaped the fire. He picked it up and examined it, turning it in his fingers. This has been handled recently, he said. What do you think of these marks? On the flat underside, Frodo saw some scratches. There seems to be a stroke, a dot, and 3 more strokes, he said. The stroke on the left might be a G rune with thin branches, said Strider. It might be a sign left by Gandalf, though one cannot be sure. The scratches are fine, and they certainly look fresh, but the marks might mean something quite different and have nothing to do with us. Rangers use runes, and they come here sometimes. What could they mean, even if Gandalf made them? Asked Merry. I should say, answered Strider, that they stood for G3 and were a sign that Gandalf was here on October the 3rd. That is 3 days ago now. It would also show that he was in a hurry and danger was at hand, so that he had no time or did not dare to write anything longer or plainer. If that is so, we must be wary. Okay, so now all of a sudden, this isn't just a quest item. This isn't just a stone with some runes on them, and nobody really knows what they mean because the ranger you return them to, he doesn't really know what it means, but he connects it to that lightning as well and all of that. But now that I've read the chapter, I can appreciate it much more. I see, okay, this is probably a sign left by Gandalf. He was here, and he may have fought a battle up here. That's why it's also scorched and burned, and that might be the reason why they saw this lightning in the distance, and he left a message letting them know that he was here on October the 3rd, and now it's October the 6th, which incidentally is exactly the day that I'm recording this video, so there's a little Easter egg for you, October the 6th. And it gives it that much more depth. When I played through this the first time, this was nothing but a ruin. Okay, I learned the name Amon Sur, it's Weathertop, and I saw it in the movie, and I remembered what happened in the movie. But beyond that, the movie, for sake of compression, just showed you the action, drove it forward very quickly, and then had Arwen come in and sort of save the day by taking Frodo to Rivendell. In the novel, it takes much longer. It plays out over several hours. They see the Nazgul converging on the road, and they have some time. They prepare a fire, and then the whole encounter plays out very suspenseful, kind of eerily, the shadows coming up, and not that action-packed scene in The Fellowship of the Ring, which I still appreciate. But now that I've read the chapter, I'm eager to read more. I want to learn more about the details and the history and the lore and all of that. So comparing the novel to the movie, I say they did a great job in the movie compressing, including the scene, but compressing it in a way that it makes sense and drives the action forward. In the game, when I just played the game, I didn't really get much out of it. And what follows, the next quest that follows, is an instance that you can play solo or with a fellowship. But the instance is very disconnected. It doesn't have anything to do with the story, and it's just sort of an afterthought. I felt it was an afterthought because you have to retake Weathertop and fight against orcs. And I played it because you have to play it in order to advance the epic storyline. You get your loot, you get your experience points, and move on. Now that I read the novel, at least this particular chapter, I think, why didn't they include a flashback instance where you meet Elendil, where you get to know more about the history of the tower and its significance in times past, and maybe even see how it was destroyed. I would have really liked that. So it falls a little flat in the game. It's an interesting quest line. Of course, you're not part of the fellowship, so they can't connect it that way. They have to do it a little differently, but I think they could have done more. And they could have made it more interesting to explore this kind of key location from the books and even from the movie. But other than that, definitely it was fun to explore the dell and see that firewood stacked and the fireplace there and the spring and all of that. And I appreciate that part more, and it gives it much more depth. But I would say definitely a missed opportunity. I would have enjoyed a bit more depth here, a bit more connection to the novel and the history. And I'm just kind of spinning around here looking at the night sky, and I hope you enjoyed this comparison, and I'll see you in class. All right, thank you very much.